the January 23rd public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission. Welcome everyone. I'm Rich Simmons, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you'll need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against the project, because your time will be limited to 3 minutes. Take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by fairly quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will be given 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at this public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll start with the introduction of the commissioners, starting on my left.
Liz Welch, Vice Chair.
Leaving Win.
Good morning, Jose Gelatz.
And from staff, we have Ron Vila, Alexis Guzman, and from legal, Dana Crosby-Collier. We have our minutes from the December 19th, 2023 meeting in our packet. Has everyone had a chance to review? Can we get a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Vila.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. And under announcements, we do have the staff approvals from December 2023. They will be in your packet and submitted into the record. And then just also as a reminder, our next public hearing is February 27th, 2024 at 9 a.m. at the City Council chambers. Moving down the agenda, I'll defer to legal for the ex parte communication and conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Vila.
Good morning, Dana Crosby-Collier from the City Attorney's Office. Commissioners, I'd like to ask if any member has a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this morning. Has any member engaged in any ex parte communication regarding any item? Thank you.
We do have two continuations reflected on the agenda. We're going to need separate motions because they're being continued to separate dates. The first one is BLC 23-191 for the address of 1601 East 7th Avenue. The request by the agent to continue to the Tuesday, March 26, 2024 at 9 a.m. And if we could get a motion for that, please.
Sure, I'll move to continue BLC 23-191 for the property located at 1601 East 7th Avenue to the March 26, 2024 public hearing, which starts at 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And the second continuation is BLC 24-23 for the address of 1210 East 18th Avenue. This application was deemed incomplete by staff and was continued to the Tuesday, February 27, 2024 public hearing at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And if we get a motion, please.
I'll move to continue BLC 24-23 for the property located at 1210 East 18th Avenue to the next public scheduled meeting, which is Tuesday, February 27, 2004, beginning at 9 a.m.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So at this time, we're going to do the swearing. Everybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Moving into our agenda item, our first case and only case this morning is BLC 24-40. There's multiple addresses. The main address is 1601 East Columbus Drive. The additional addresses are 1607 East Columbus Drive, 2614 North 17th Street, 2616 North 17th Street, and 2618 North 20th North 17th Street. This is for a dual request. It's for a variance for a buffer reduction. It will be illustrated in the presentation. The applicant knows that he's going to address the variance first. They're going to have 10 minutes. The board will deliberate and see where it goes. If the variance is approved, then we go into the certificate of appropriateness. The variance, we have 10 minutes for that, and then we'll go into the certificate of appropriateness for 30 minutes if we go in that direction. There is a contributing structure that dates back to the early 1900s with 1910. It is a contributing building. As I stated, the buffer reduction is a landscaping buffer from 5 foot to 0, and then there's certificate of appropriateness for the building restoration / renovation with site improvements. There is some past action associated with this request on page 3 of your staff report. They came to us probably better than a year and a half ago, purchased the building and looked at the condition of the building. There were many suitors prior to the current owner having this building that looked to demo this building, so it fell into good hands moving forward. So, take that in consideration as you look at the plans moving forward. They also have an ad valorem coming forward. It's in the process. We are working with them now. The ad valorem touches on the exterior and the interior. Today, the certificate of appropriateness, we're just looking at the exterior and the site work. And there also is an active petition to vacate the alley. If this goes forward, the vacating the alley will be withdrawn if they get the variance and they build out the parking as indicated on the site plan that is currently in front of you this morning. The grid is very important to staff. So as part of, future development patterns along the block, and I'll show you when I get to the Sanborn, some of the challenges that we have integrating parking into this urban environment. Yes, sir.
Quick question. The alley vacation, the application, was that filed by the applicant, or is that a city thing or another property owner in the area?
By the applicant.
By the applicant,
Yeah.
okay.
As this moves forward, the variance hardship is in your packet, so you could follow along and then ask questions as well. At this point, I'd like to get into the photo presentation. I'd like to start with the 1929 Sanborn map, which is currently in front of you. Property in question is highlighted in the green parcel. This building that dates back to 1910, and this is the 1929 Sanborn map, encompasses, half a city block. It does face Michigan in 1929, which is Columbus Drive now. Then you have some perimeter streets. You have 16th to the west and 17th to the east. I wanted just to point out a couple things that this building is shaded in an orange. You see some yellow, which indicates frame construction. You see some red, which is brick construction. And the orange was kind of a new construction type in the early 1900s. This was poured concrete, and this was a fire retardant kind of construction that in Ybor City, there were multiple fires that wiped out many blocks at a time. So this is, they're thinking ahead, and they had the technology. And this is one of the few buildings in the infancy of Ybor City that had that construction type. The alley that I spoke about runs east and west behind the subject site. And if you look at the density just to the south of the alley, you see the closeness and the proximity from building to building and the challenge that they have bringing the automobile into the front. That's why the grid and the alley is so important to keep open so the vehicle could navigate through the rear if, as part of the overall plan. Just moving to today's aerial, this is our vicinity map, just to show that you have I-4 here and the subject site is north of the interstate. Just another illustration to point that out to you. We have the property in question. We have the Newman Cigar Factory or Quest Array that's went through multiple renovations and is a showpiece on its own. And then in front of this board, a workers' park was created, and I'll show you some photos here. So they're kind of completing the project and the scope of here as this puzzle comes together. This is the front elevation, which faces Columbus Drive. You see some of the challenges up top that they have. And this is stucco on the front. Then as you zoom in onto the parapet that's up here, there's some language up here, there's some lettering up here, there's some detailing that will be replicated as the process goes through. This is the front elevation, and this is the east elevation. On the east elevation, you see the solids and voids, the penetrations that are existing. And then you see that there's brickwork on the bottom and then some stucco up top. So there's a mixing of materials. Continuing to the parking area, this is to the east, this is Columbus Drive, this is the east of the building. And then just another perspective, once again, Columbus Drive, you look at the parking area that will be elongated all the way to 17th Street, but you see the building in the background. Once again, focusing on the front elevation and then the west elevation. You see the footprint and the proximity to the sidewalk and the street, how the building is very urban in its placing. Some street shots to show some of the difficulties with the surrounding and parking in the area. This is 17th Street. This is looking back from Columbus Drive to the interstate. And along that same facade, up top, you see some challenges. Some of this was exploration, and then some of it was just demise of the building over time. And then moving to the rear elevation. Once again, you have the minimal overhang that's here. You have some mixing of materials. You have brick and some stucco. Looking down Columbus Drive, property in question is over here. Columbus Drive is a one-way street with minimal street parking. This is looking to the west. And as you look down Columbus Drive to the east, this is the building that we're looking at today. This is the parking area, and then the cigar factory to the north. Columbus one way to the east, and then you see how there's some challenges parking around here. Looking at El Reloj, very significant building in its own right. And then the Workers' Park that came in front of you, and it's part of the neighborhood. They have it open up for the neighborhood. They just don't keep it for themselves, so it is an amenity for everybody. Just a couple of shots of the interior. I know we're not there, but just to show some of the challenges. You see some of the spalling that's going on, some of the structural elements that are here. And just looking in, and this is no doubt a construction site. And then I just wanted to share one last photo with you. This is a period photo. I didn't want to show too many. The applicant is going to show these. But here you see the skylight that is in the subject property that we're talking about today. It has this little visor that's on the east side. It's a one-story visor. And this was kind of parking and just ancillary, land here. The request in front of you today is going to incorporate some kind of visor here. So there's going to be a transition from the parking to this area, and then when you come inside. And then you have the cigar factory to the north. So very iconic photo that we have here. I'm going to stop talking at this time, and I'm going to hand it over to their team. I believe the owner is going to address the board first, and then we'll get into the presentation.
Hey, Ron. How do I get it back? There you go. And then
Perfect. Good morning. My name is Drew Newman. My great-grandfather started our company in 1895, and it's a pleasure to be here before you because we love Ybor City. I wanted to show you a map of Ybor City. Ron had it in his presentation a moment ago. You guys know this well, but what I like about this map is it shows Ybor City as a neighborhood, as a community, as it was 100 years ago. But as you know, as we all know, in the 1960s, the federal government ripped our community in half. And since then, most of the development, most of the energy, most of what people think of Ybor City is south of I-4. It's along 7th Avenue. But where we are, north of I-4, is just as much a part of Ybor City as 7th Avenue, but it's been kind of overlooked and neglected and forgotten about. And we want to change that. And we've been working hard to change that because there's just great history there as well. So on this slide on the left, that's my great-grandfather. And when he came to Tampa in 1953, El Reloj looked like it did in this image. That's a 1951 image. And I'm very, very proud to share with you that 70 plus years later, El Reloj looks kind of the same. I have to look twice at this slide because these really are two separate images, but the perspective is the same, the building is the same, the history is the same. And in celebration of our company's 125th anniversary a few years ago, we wanted to give back to the community by investing in our building and bringing El Reloj back to life just the way it was 100 years ago. And also open our doors. You know, a century ago, there were 150 factories just like ours, but now we're the last ones still rolling cigars. And so we realized if we didn't open our factory and invite visitors in and tell the story of Ybor City, nobody else could. So 4 years ago, we had 0 visitors. Last year, thanks to Kara, that's Kara who runs our programs, we had 15,000 visitors that came to the factory for tours, tastings, events. We had 850 guided tours, 80 weddings. We taught people how to roll 4,000 cigars. And the biggest piece of feedback we've gotten is they want more. Visitors want to learn more about Ybor City, about the history. They want more to do. They ask us, where can you go to get a cup of café con leche? Where can I go to get a Cuban sandwich, which right now is just La Segunda, 3 blocks away, which is great, but there's no seating. And so we realized that we have this beautiful building that is in horrible shape right across the street, the Sanchez y Haya building. And it was built 100 years ago to service the cigar factory. And so it only seems perfect for us to rehabilitate it again so it can service the cigar factory and our visitors, our neighbors, and the community once again. 100 years ago, Sanchez y Haya had a small hotel on the 2nd floor and a small cafe and bar on the 1st floor. And our only goal is to make it so that when you walk in the building 2 years from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now, that it looks and feels just like it did 100 years ago. And we've been fortunate to find some old historic historic photographs that are really guiding that process. But we're very proud of what we've done in the factory. I want to share more, but I'm cognizant that we've got a 10-minute clock here that is running out, and I needed to turn it over to actually our team to talk about what this variance request is. But first, I just want to introduce them. We have John, our architect, Alex, our designer, David, our landscape architect, Matt, our civil engineer. We also have our structural engineer and our mechanical engineer listed here as well. And then Kara runs everything. And so we're very proud of what we're doing. If you haven't been, please come to see El Reloj sometime soon. And I hope to share more in the second part of the presentation. But before time expires, let me turn over to John.
Great. Thank you, Drew. As Drew mentioned, my name is John Hadley, project architect with Row Architects. And we've had the privilege of working with the Newmans for the last few years now, and we're excited to kind of share everything that we've done and kind of explain where we're going on this next phase of work. So this is the existing site directly across the street from the J.C. Newman Cigar Factory. J.C. Newman owns, as Ron mentioned, almost the entire half block, with the exception of the residential lot in the southeast corner. The site includes the Sanchez and Haya building on the west. And as kind of Ron alluded to, it's interesting to note that it's a 0 lot line building, even though on the east, there's never been a building that's actually kind of sat with any kind of adjacency to it. And then the rest of the lot which is a collection of parcels, is empty and has been really forever, as you've seen in the historic aerials. So here's another look at the site as it exists today versus our proposed site development, and this is more of a technical kind of engineering drawing, so I'm going to show a rendered site plan that's a little bit more legible. So we're going to get into more detail later, hopefully with the certificate of appropriateness presentation, but for the purposes of the variance request, I'd like to point out that the area immediately adjacent to the building on the east side will be developed into an outdoor seating patio, while the rest of the site will be parking. The city requires a 5-foot landscape buffer when bordering a roadway. You can see that we meet those requirements on the north side along Columbus and on the east along 17th. But along the south edge of the property, there's an alley, which technically is considered a roadway. Unfortunately, our proposed parking lot design only allows for a 2-foot landscape buffer, which is why we're requesting just to kind of go down to 0, just for kind of flexibility. In the design of the parking lot, we included as many compact spaces as allowed, and we reduced the drive aisles as much as possible. We made the parking layout as efficient as possible. We're still a few feet short of meeting the minimum landscape buffer here on the south side. In fact, as Ron mentioned, we have an active application request for the vacation of the alley easement, but we plan to withdraw the easement vacation application pending the outcome of this variance request. In discussions with the city's Historic Preservation Office, we understand the desire to maintain the alley because of the pattern of historic urban development that it represents. The reality, in this instance, is that the alley is abandoned, unpaved, and overgrown. Though a technical requirement providing a 5-foot landscape buffer here, I would argue, is not necessarily consistent with the historic kind of usage and development of the alley. There are several other mitigating circumstances that I'd like to highlight here. As Drew mentioned, the success of J.C. Newman's recent work in the neighborhood has been tremendous and has provided much-needed development in this section of Ybor. The existing parking infrastructure at J.C. Newman can be tight, especially during a special event, but the parking needs will continue to grow with the opening of the Sanchez and Hyatt building, and we want to reduce this impact on the residential neighborhood as much as possible by being able to accommodate as much parking as we can on site and to avoid it spilling into the adjacent streets. If you work with Drew, at any length of time, you realize he hates surface parking lots, and it kind of, I think, kills him to sort of max it out in this way. But I think it's just an acknowledgement of the success that they've had, and they want to be good neighbors. Ideally, we would mimic the parking layout that you see on the other side of 16th to the left, but unfortunately, the landscape buffers called out in kind of contemporary code render that impossible. J.C. Newman owns several lots on the south side of the block and is widely considered an excellent neighbor in the neighborhood, proactively reaching out and creating consensus with each one of its projects. So, in summary, J.C. Newman is requesting a landscape buffer reduction off of an unused alley so that it can accommodate the growth and revitalization that they are bringing to the neighborhood. And with that, I'll turn it over, but thank you for your consideration.
John, bring it into the record, your responses.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I'll read the statement of variance hardship. And Ron, I'm just supposed to kind of just read it exactly, kind of. Okay, all right. Number one, the alleged hardship or practical difficulties are unique and singular with respect to the property or with respect to a structure or building therein, and are not suffered in common with other properties, structures, or buildings similarly located. The proposed variance includes a buffer reduction, and the associated hardships that have resulted in the need for the subject variance are unique and singular with respect to both the property as well as the structure thereon. The existing building on site was constructed in 1910, which is within the designated period of historic significance. The existing building was constructed as it stands today, which includes no buffer along the southern property line. The proposed redevelopment seeks to complete an adaptive reuse of the existing building, which is currently devoid of associated parking. In conjunction with the planned adaptive reuse, the adjacent parcels have been proposed as a surface parking lot, which will ensure that the development will be in accordance with the city's land development code, as off-street parking is required. The building, an estimated 14,000 square feet, demands 35 parking spaces based on the proposed uses, which we can get into later, that were not included as part of the original development. However, this number of spaces is not sufficient for the operations of the building based on the applicant's experience and proposed programming. In an effort to ensure that parking does not spill into the neighborhood, a greater number of stalls have been included. These stalls, while accommodating the future patrons, will also benefit the general public as they will capture those visiting the surrounding sites in the Ybor area, such as J.C. Newman Cigar Company and the newly built Cigar Workers Park. The requested buffer reduction will provide this greater benefit with a smaller impact to the buffer. Sorry, a lawyer wrote this, so it's a little long. All right, I'm going to keep going. The hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship or practical difficulty shall not justify a variance. The applicant does not construct the original building, whose original development was void of off-site parking spaces. The applicant seeks to preserve the existing building, but must ensure that future patrons have a space to park their cars. As per code, developments must be parked appropriately. Given the zoning regulations were established following the construction of the existing building, the hardship is one that stems from an introduction of regulations that were not applicable to the site at the time of the original construction. Number three, the variance, if granted, will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others whose property will be affected by allowance of the variance. And the answer is the buffer reduction will not substantially interfere with or injure the health, safety, or welfare of others, as the reduction is requested adjacent to an existing alley that the city seeks to preserve. The portion of the property, including the proposed surface parking lot, will be screened by a 6-foot fence, a decorative metal fence, ensuring the development will still be buffered from the adjacent alley. It is also important to note that the alley is not currently operational, and so the 10-foot width of said alley acts as an additional buffer between the proposed parking lot and the residentially zoned lots further south, many of which are currently vacant. Further, additional vehicular congestion has the potential to spill into the residential neighborhoods, and so the provision of the code excess parking stalls will serve to prevent such spillage, which by nature substantially reduces and/or eliminates a burden that is often associated with redevelopment. Number 4, the variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of this chapter and the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan. The requested variance is in harmony with and serves the general intent and purpose of the adopted Tampa Comprehensive Plan in Chapter 7 of the Land Development Code, which serves to implement the former. Specific excerpts as outlined in the city's code relating to intent and purpose are listed below. To stabilize and enhance property and civic values. The proposed buffer reduction will allow for the enhancement of the property value as the existing buildings will be adapted into a usable structure and the required parking needed to serve the building will be provided. To aid in the development and redevelopment of the city, the proposed buffer reduction will allow for the existing building, a continuing structure cherished by the community, to be redeveloped and serviced appropriately with adjacent off-street parking to accommodate the programming. To provide more adequately for vehicular parking, the purpose of the buffer reduction will allow for a well-designed surface parking lot to service the existing building appropriately. To lessen the congestion, disorder, and danger that often occurs in unplanned and unregulated urban development. Given the site was developed prior to zoning regulations, the parking was not included in the original development. The proposed surface parking lot, made possible and efficient with the buffer reduction, will lessen the congestion on the public streets by providing an option for on-site parking. To ensure compatibility of new development with existing development and open space. The proposed buffer reduction permit will permit the necessary I don't even know what that word, appurtenances, in this case parking, integral to ensuring a successful adaptive reuse of the existing building, which in and of itself provides a thread connecting the district's past with the new development to occur in its future. Number 5, allowing the variance will result in a substantial justice being done, considering both the public benefits intended to be secured by this chapter and the individual hardships or practical difficulties that will be suffered due to a failure of the board to grant a variance. Excuse me. Allowing the variance will result in substantial justice being done, particularly as it relates to the preservation of a key building constructed within the period of historic significance. In order for the building to be preserved in its original form, parking must be provided on the adjacent site, and the parking demanded by the proposed uses far exceeds those required by the city code. However, as mentioned above, significant public benefit will be provided with the granting of the variance and thus the construction of the parking spaces within the buffer, as these spaces will not only accommodate the proposed on-site uses, but have the vast potential to mitigate parking issues in the surrounding community, which includes the popular and frequently visited Jason Newman Cigar Company. Patrons of both the factory and the proposed redevelopment, as well as visitors to the neighborhood in general, will be able to utilize the parking facilities provided, reducing the number of cars congesting the local streets. Parking has historically been viewed as a noteworthy public benefit, and the proposed parking provided with this redevelopment will serve the same purpose. Finally, the variance, if granted, will allow the development that is consistent with the design standards and compatible with the historic pattern of development within the historic district, historic conservation overlay district, and multiple property designation, or the locally designated landmark or landmark site in which the subject property is located. The variance will allow for the development that is consistent with the design standards and compatible with the historic pattern of development within the district, as it will allow for the existing building to remain, which is, by nature, the genesis of the historic pattern of development that exists today. Additionally, it's important to note that in terms of the pattern of development in the surrounding area, the parking lot located just west of the proposed redevelopment across North 16th Street contains no buffer as well. This site is also adjacent to the alley that runs east-west between East Columbus Drive and East 15th Avenue. I apologize about that, but there you go.
Can you put a site plan up that shows where the reduction is at? There. So in addressing the variance, staff is usually silent on that, but I want to bring a couple of items to light. That is a finding of fact through the illustrations that he's showing, through the verbiage that he put into the record. There's 6 criteria questions that need to be answered. It's not a checklist that every one of them has to be answered correctly and fulfill your requirements, but you look at it to see if it creates a negative environment to the community, or does it better the community of what is presented? So we're looking at an urban environment that's always evolving in this particular manner, and to see if this is compatible with the overall concept of Ybor City and the direction that we're trying to go. Usually the variances are approved per the site plan. They are asking from 5 foot to 0. If the least that they need is a reduction of 3 foot, and what's illustrated on this drawing can be achieved, then that's what should be the motion if it moves forward. And I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vila. Anyone here for the public wishing to comment on this case? Seeing none. We can ask some comments of the applicant, starting with Ms. Welch.
I don't know that I have anything yet.
Okay. Reserve your.
Thank you, I reserve the right.
So in terms of the flexibility you were mentioning for within the 2 feet to reduce the setback from, 5 to 0, what does that 2 feet in terms of flexibility are you thinking could kind of give you?
Well, we feel like we can achieve it with 2 feet. It's just there's not a lot of margin for error there. So that's why we requested it down to 0. But the intent is to provide a little strip of something. David will work hard to kind of, ideally we would put some landscaping there. It's just not a lot to work with, so we'll do our best there. But, the 0 was really just to give us a little bit of margin for error going forward during construction.
Okay, understood. All right, that's all I had.
No questions.
I have a few questions. So on this, can you go to the larger site plan with I think the one that you had just previously? Nope, down one. This will work. So you guys don't own all those blocks on the south side of that block?
Correct, not all.
You own that one parcel in the middle, and then you have 2 neighbors flanking it?
Yeah.
So that's accurate, then, that you have that one lot, but there's 2 residences there. Is the alley functional right now?
My understanding is that the only kind of use the alley gets is off of 17th, that house there, the White House, that they use it almost like their own personal driveway because no one drives through. You can't, I don't even, is that accurate? It's overgrown. Yeah, and so the curb cut off of 16th, really, you would never drive up there, and it's totally overgrown. There's no pavement there. So my understanding is the only use it gets is that person kind of, we'll say, I don't want to say illegally, but they use it a little bit as a driveway, even though they probably shouldn't.
Okay, and those 2 residences on either side of the south lot there, those are occupied? They're
Yes.
not vacant?
Correct.
Okay. So, let's go back to your other site plan that had dimensions on it. Oh, one more. That one. So this is a little different than what the previous version that we saw in our packet, so you guys have made some changes to this. My understanding is there's 35 spaces required for the redevelopment of the building, but you're maxing out, you're trying to get as many in there as possible. So what's that number?
The delta is about 8 spots.
What do you mean delta? How many spots are there?
There are, Matt, help me out. How many spots did we
I
land?
counted like 60 before.
60. Sorry, this is cut off. It's on the full drawing that we have, but I cut it off here for the purpose of just kind of getting this larger.
Well, and I think the dimensions here are helpful because you're using compact spaces at the top, then you have your minimum drive aisle twice at 24 feet. Is everything compact in there?
The only compact spots we have are, the top row is full size, 9 by 18. The middle tray is compact. It's got, it's compact in its
16.
length, which is the 16, but we kept the 9 foot because we had room to, we could kind of do the 9. And then the bottom row is compact as well, at 16.
Compact, but your ADA spaces are not your handicap. Right, they're normal. They need to be normal, right? Is that 18 or 16?
That is 16, and Matt, can you comment on that, whether the 88 can be 16 or whether it need to be 18?
Because I think the previous version that we saw had the 88 spaces up at the top, and then you move them down, which this is a better solution, but I'm just wondering if there's.
Sure, Matt Campo, Campo Engineering.
Hey, Matt.
I mean, there's no specific code that dictates a depth for ADA, it's always width.
Yeah.
And of course, in our case, you know, with the way we've got the striped crosswalk across the back of the spaces, at one point you saw the parking probably, or the ADA out on the street level.
Right.
And so we moved it back just to get it out of, you know, where you would have conflict crossings. So, but there's really nothing specific about the depth with respect to 16 or 18, as long as you got the 12 and then the 5-foot
Sure.
walkway. So.
Okay, so you've maximized this site. I mean, I'm sure you've worked at many different iterations in trying to get this, and this is kind of how we're, you know, and, you know, where I'm going with the other thing is like, you know, for a hardship, for a variance here, you know, can we lose some parking spaces? Yeah, but it's not ideal. You've worked the site over as well as you could there. You know, and I think if any other variations, you're gonna lose a significant amount of parking. So I think this is you know, a good solution here. I understand why you're trying to maximize your parking here. And Columbus is a one-way street, so I think though, you know, you have people coming in, you know, I think the site plan is maximized here.
Yes.
Just to be clear, when you talk about the variance, you're not really, you mentioned the building multiple times, but the building doesn't need a variance. It's really all the landscape buffer of a reduction of 5 to 0. So it's related to the parking. You mentioned a fence down there. I think on your, if you go to the other one that's rendered, you call it out as a ornamental fence there. How do you plan on treating that? Because keynote 3 is an ornamental fence wall with fence, so what's the difference? Is it?
Yeah, the difference is that along Columbus and 17th, and we'll get into this with certificate of appropriateness, but that is a low brick wall with a decorative aluminum metal fence above it.
Okay.
But the idea on the south side is that we want to kind of soften that and make that, we don't want a opaque wall that's going to be heavy, so we would do a 6-foot tall aluminum decorative metal fence.
Okay, and you'll get into that in the CA, what your proposed fencing is going to be. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I'm good.
Are you reserved?
I'm good.
Are you
I'm
reserved?
good. No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Shalats?
Oh, just been reading the note next to the garbage, number 8, it says it's going to be rolled out onto the street. I'm just wondering, do you have a designated area where those bins would be rolled out on trash collection days?
That was based off of feedback from city staff, you know, prior to, in working up towards this presentation. The feedback we got is the diagonal is not ideal for trash collections. The idea is that dumpster would get pushed out right outside of the enclosure so that it could be lined up for direct axial pickup by the truck.
Yeah, staff said they could maneuver through the site to pick up.
Oh, okay.
But it'd be the responsibility of the owner to basically position the container, you know, when that day
Okay,
comes.
so the trash pickup will be within the site as you
Yes.
just
And
stated.
it'll be a rollout
Okay.
type of container.
I wasn't clear with the note, but that's a better situation because it doesn't look like there's space outside of the property boundaries for that kind of collection to take place. Thank you.
Any other questions? You have a few minutes if you'd like to summarize your comments or rebuttal, or we'll just go ahead and close the public hearing. And anything else to add?
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. We're going to close the public hearing and have some discussion on the case. Start with Mr. Shalats.
I think the applicants have presented,
Come back and get into your CA.
meeting the hardship criteria, especially since the guidelines really request that or state that the street patterns of the neighborhood trump almost all other considerations. And I really appreciate that they've maintained the 5-foot buffer required along Columbus and 17th Avenue as well, the more important public-facing sides of the site.
I'd agree with that, and that the hardship criteria is met. As Ron kind of alluded to, I just want to know what we kind of reduce that setback to. I'd like to see at least maybe like a 1-foot buffer or something like that, just to, you know, I think it's nice that the fence on the south side got pointed out so that, you know, cars aren't kind of sticking into the alley or anything like that. But, eventually over time, as, we see this development happen and hopefully more development happen on the north side of I-4 there and, see more revitalization in this area of Ybor, I'd love to see the alley restored eventually, some of the parking come back to those residential properties to the south side of this lot and all that kind of stuff, and them actually use that as an alley again and kind of restore that grid and make this area more walkable, a more walkable part of Ybor too. I'd love to see that, so.
I like what they've laid out. I like this version better than what we've seen in the past. I don't know that I disagree with the request for the 0 lot line, only as they've indicated, they're looking for some grace and a little bit of room as they build it out, room for error. So I don't know that I'm opposed to the 0 lot line that they're requesting. I just keep coming back to the trash. They're gonna have an employee push the trash out every night or every week or whatever it is. And I guess I hope that there's other options that can come up that will be easier to navigate that. I wouldn't want to be the employee out there pushing the dumpster. Do you know what I mean? It's like, really? But anyway, I'm okay with what they're proposing.
Yeah, I think what they've done here is maximize the site for the parking, and we know that they have issues, with the tours and the visitors that they have to their building, and they're trying to consolidate and get the most out of it. I think if the required parking is exceeded, but this isn't a very efficient layout for them. They're respectful of their neighbors, and I can see why the hardship exists on this site. The official request is a buffer reduction from 5 to 0, so I think that's what's in front of us right now for the paperwork. So that gives them a little bit of flexibility. I asked about the fence, and I'm kind of concerned what that's going to look like. So we'll see what that is, and we'll have some say on that in the CA. But I think the hardship criteria, the 5 conditions have been met here, 6 conditions, sorry, and I don't have any issue with this. Probably a couple conditions. We need to have them probably state that the alley vacation would be withdrawn.
Yeah.
Whoever's going to make.
All right, so for an approval with conditions, move that the variance request for BLC 24-40, located at 1601 East Columbus Drive, that's 1607 East Columbus Drive, 2614 North 17th Street, 2616 North 17th Street, 2618 North 17th Street. As depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing, for a buffer reduction from 5 feet to 0 feet, be granted with the following conditions: that the applicant withdraw their request for the alley vacation to the south side of the lot, because based upon the petition meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in Chapter 27, Section 27-96D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated and evidence provided in this public hearing. Specifically, that the applicant meets the hardship criteria and will, and if with the variance being granted, allow development that's consistent with the design standards within the historic context of Ybor City.
Second.
Second.
Sorry.
Okay, we have for the applicant, we have a condition placed upon this variance. Can they acknowledge that they are okay with this condition?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congrats. Now we'll move on to the CA portion.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. So we're now in the second part, and I'm glad I have a few more minutes to talk to you about what we're doing, because it's my first time before you, and we've been doing a lot of work trying to improve our corner of Ybor City. The streetscape in north part of the historic district kills me. A few years ago, the city did a magnificent job transforming Columbus from Nebraska to 14th Street, and they stopped. and they stop at 14th Street, 2 blocks away, and it kills me. And I'll say it to you, I'll say it to any person that I see working in the city, the county, it's got to change. I'm going to keep talking about it till it changes. Columbus at 14th goes from two-way to one-way, and there's no stopping. There's no crosswalk, there's no stoplight, there's no stop sign from 14th to 21st Street, and it's like a raceway. The traffic picks up, and the streetscape is ugly. Where we are, in the northern part of the historic district, we don't have the beautiful decorative street signs and the decorative stop signs. We've got the normal, old, boring aluminum signs. We're going to change that. But the streetscape needs a lot of work. Our neighborhood needs a lot of work, but there's great bones there. And even though what's before you right now is a certificate of appropriateness just for Santa Ynez High, I wanted to spend a few moments talking about our greater plans and our greater project. So as I mentioned in the first part of the presentation, we started with El Reloj, with our building, the guts of the building. We repointed all the bricks and around the clock tower and around most of the building, and restored the inside. And I'll show you photos of that in a moment. But then we took the decorative brick knee wall and fence that was right in front of the factory, and we wrapped it all the way around the factory. Took down horrible chain link fence that my grandfather put up, probably because it was cheap, and made it better. My grandfather also paved this parking lot in the late 50s, and I guess standards were different back then, because all it was is dirt with a little amount of asphalt. The city would never let us get that permitted today, but they did back then, and so we took it all out, cleaned it up, add a bunch of landscaping, planted some oak trees, put some traffic islands in there, got 1880s bricks from Platt Street and Willow, got those reclaimed, put those in there to really soften it and make the parking lot nice too, because it's all visual that people see. And then my grandfather bought these 2 lots directly across from El Reloj back in the 60s and 70s, and they were just vacant forever, and people illegally parked there. It's funny, like we'd see people park there in the morning in the summer, and it was dry in the afternoon, the rains came in, and their cars were kind of stuck in a lake. But we fixed all that, and we thought a lot about this, talked with staff, and we realized it's zone commercial. We could put up a 3-story building, we could come before you, put a building up there, but I was worried because the view of El Reloj is the clock tower. It's the west facade. It's coming down Columbus to the east. If you put a building directly across the street, it's going to interrupt the view, and didn't want to do that. And in our corner of Ybor City, we don't have a lot of green space. We don't have a lot of community space. We don't have enough trees. And so we thought that the neighborhood would better be served by taking these 2 lots and building a park. And so that's what we did. And if you're free at 2 o'clock today, the mayor and Congresswoman Castor are coming to cut the ribbon. Finally, it's been a long time coming. You're welcome to join us or come by at any time. And then we have more plans, and we'll talk more about Santa Ynez High right here, reinvigorating that building and bringing it back to life, and making a destination for our visitors and neighbors and factory workers, just like it was 100 years ago, and the unfortunate need for parking next to it. But my hope is after that, we can then start developing this lot, which is a horrible surface parking lot that my grandfather put in the 60s as well. There's no buffer, there's no landscaping. It is a crummy asphalt island that is like a heat sink in the summer with chain link fence that's falling apart. But we're going to fix that, and we'll come back before you later. It's not before you today, but I just want to give you the overall vision. And the last piece I want to share is that right now the story we tell of Ybor City when visitors come in starts with the tobacco that comes to cigar factories. We show the process of curing and manufacturing and aging and packing, and then out it goes. But I want to back up that process a little bit further and show that the cigars that have been made in Tampa for 137 years are a natural agricultural product. And so I want to go to North Florida, where there's some historic tobacco barns, and bring one down here. And the team seems game for this, and actually reconstruct it in Ybor City, and start growing tobacco right in front of it too, so we can show the entire process from seed to smoke that fueled Tampa's development and fueled Ybor City. So we'll come back before you later this year, talk about more of those details. But the purpose of this slide is to show that I'm thinking of our neighborhood as an actual neighborhood, as a forgotten corner of Ybor City. We want to bring it back to life, and the Sanchez High project is the next step in there. El Reloj, if you haven't been, please come by sometime. I put this slide in here to show you the standards that we have, which is we've adopted the mantle of being ambassadors for the cigar industry, for Ybor City, for the city of Tampa, because again, we're the last factory. If we don't tell Tampa's cigar story, nobody else can and no one else would. So we want to make sure that our visitors have a first-class experience and leave with respect and understanding and appreciation for Tampa Cigar Pass. And it's with that goal and those standards in mind that we're approaching the building across the street as well. Here's some photos of Cigar Workers Park 2, showing what it looks like. Our team did an amazing job. We love it. I can't wait to be out there in this weather. It's just a great way to help improve the neighborhood and make it look a little nicer. And then the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to our team is we've been working with all of our projects, not only with city staff, but also with SHPO and with NPS 2 as part of the Federal Rehabilitation Tax Credit Program. And we had the National Park Service reviewer and SHPO and Dennis were down for a tour in April, and they're walking through Sanchez y Haya. You guys remember what they said? Mm-hmm. They said that the Sanchez y Haya building was the second worst building in the state of Florida that they've ever seen anyone try to rehabilitate. My reaction was like, what's worse? How can there be a building worse than what we're taking on? But we're not deterred by it. The building's been neglected all of my life, but the bones are there, the history's there. It's got great stories, and I'm just so excited that we can do our part, try to do our part in North Ybor City to keep this the history of our community alive. And so with that, I'll let the professionals talk about what we're actually going to do, because that's more than I really can speak to.
Okay. So we're turning back to the site plan, so look at that in a little more detail. The intent is to use the existing curb cut along Columbus and install a new one on 17th Street to the right to enhance flow. The parking spaces are differentiated from the drive aisles with the use of reclaimed brick pavers with a flush concrete curb. The north and east perimeter fencing is a low brick wall. I'll show an image of that in a moment, with a decorative metal fence above it. And then, as we discussed, the 6-foot decorative metal fence is on the south side along the alley. The walkway around the building is designated with the use of a concrete hex paver, a nod to pavers used throughout the rest of Ybor. And immediately east of the building, I mentioned earlier, is an outdoor seating patio for the cigar lounge, which we'll get into the plan in a moment, but the cigar lounge occupies the eastern side of the first floor of the building. The western side houses a cafe, and the planned use for the second floor is a boutique hotel, which has a separate entry in the middle. Ron kind of alluded to that earlier. There's actually historically 3 addresses associated with this building. The rest of the first floor is kind of back-of-house use, including the kitchen. The material palette, and fixture selection for the site borrows from the Historic Factory and Cigar Workers Park across the street. The goal is to have a unifying architectural language to demarcate the J.C. Newman campus and to tie it to the central Ybor City district. So the fencing, this is the fencing, historic fencing across the street, low brick wall. In this case, this was steel. We went back with aluminum, but it matches the same profile. And then this is the fencing at Cigar Workers Park that is kind of matches that. And so this would be along Columbus and 17th at Sanchez and Haya. And then the 6-foot fence is this same pattern, just brought all the way down without the low brick knee wall. David Connor, our landscape architect, is here to answer any specific questions on plantings, but the goal, like the park, is to have a sustainable kind of native plantings to remain as authentic as possible. And we could return back if there are specific questions on that. As we move inside the building, here's a view of what the cafe looked like from an historic photo. Note the prominent concrete frame, and as Ron mentioned, Sanchez and Haya is a contributing structure to the Ybor City National Historic Landmark District, in part because it was the first reinforced concrete structure in the city of Tampa. Here is a view of the original back bar. In the background, note the large storefront opening looking out across Columbus to the J.C. Newman factory, which at the time was called the Regensburg factory. And this is a view on the east side, which will be the cigar lounge of the first floor. The simple finishes, exposed structure, and limited ornament denote the industrial nature of the building. The upstairs served as short-term housing for cigar workers, complete with gang restrooms. And don't worry, we're not going back with gang restrooms for the Boutique Hotel. Note the high windows on the left under which the grocery wares would be displayed. So this is what the building looked like on the inside when the Newmans bought it. It was full of trash, and it's really kind of hard to overstate how terrible the condition of it was. It had been abandoned and neglected for decades. But you can see the historic back bar, excuse me, in the background, which we have salvaged for reuse in the new cafe. This is the typical view of the inside of the exterior storefront along the north and the west, which is mostly missing and boarded up with plywood. Unfortunately, the innovative reinforced concrete frame I mentioned earlier is in desperate need of repair. Because of the substantial water intrusion, the concrete has spalled extensively, causing major damage. And I'm not exaggerating when it is like this both on the underside of the second floor slab and the roof throughout the entire building. In fact, some of the beams and columns are so compromised there was fear that the building would collapse if immediate action wasn't taken. The Newmans were counseled on multiple occasions by pretty much everyone who had an opinion that they'd be better off demolishing the building. On the right is a view of the light, what we call the light well. Ron referred to it as a skylight on the second floor, but it has been open, and the plan is to keep it open. It's one of the most unique features of the building. Its purpose was to bring natural light to the middle of the second floor. And here's a typical view of the original double-hung wood windows, most of which are beyond repair. And you can see my colleague there saying, what have we got ourselves into? These images show the horrible condition of the plaster and interior partitions on the second floor. The gentleman on the left, Tom Hammer from our office, our technical director, should have been wearing a helmet because the new chunks of plaster would fall off the walls and ceilings every day. So then you fast forward, and our first course of action was to clear out the building of debris and to stabilize it with temporary bracing and shoring. This was approved by the city's historic preservation staff administratively and by the building department. The work is now complete, and it was a critical first step to ensure the building could be moved through, assessed, and stand safely. This is a view of the first floor cafe side. The next phase of work we're not going to go into it here today, but it's to repair the structure of the building on the inside, which has been permitted and construction is about to start. This is a view of the second floor, cleared out of all the plaster walls and ceilings, which needed to be abated because of the asbestos they contained. And here's one happy owner ready to move forward with the fun part of the project, what we're going to be reviewing today to give the building new life. So as described before, the first floor on the right is divided into a cigar cafe, cigar lounge, and then back-of-house functions. What's exciting about the new plans for the building is that they very closely align with its historic use. This was done on purpose by the Newmans to connect the past with the present. These uses also offer a much-needed amenity to an area of Ybor north of the interstate. Drew mentioned earlier that sorely lacks this type of development. The second floor will be a boutique hotel, open to the public, but designed specifically for visitors and guests to the factory. The plans are still very much a work in progress, but as was mentioned earlier, we've had several meetings with city staff and the State Office of Historic Preservation and the National Park Service about the project. Like past projects which qualify for federal tax credits and local grants, the Newmans intend to pursue similar funding by adhering to the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of documentation of the exterior of the building. Here's a view of the Regensburg factory with Sanchez and Hyatt in the background. And here's a similar view from another historic photo. What's evident is that the building was a light color, white perhaps, with dark accented windows. Here are aerials of the building from about the 1950s. Notice the light well in the middle of the building. Again, the light exterior color. And the adjacent lot was used many different ways, but it was once used as like an auto repair kind of operation. So this is what the building looks like from the outside. The northwest and part of the south exterior walls have a thick stucco finish on wire lath with what I call kind of wire stud framing. I suspect because of the fireproof construction, they didn't want to use kind of conventional wood stick framing for the walls. So instead, they used this kind of wire stud, if you will. These walls were infill in between the concrete frame of the columns and beams. This wire stud framing has rusted away so completely that chunks of exterior wall plaster fall into the sidewalk below. On the east facade, the first floor has brick infill in the concrete frame, and you can kind of make out the concrete frame kind of ghosted through the paint. And you'll notice the high wood windows shown on the first floor that we previously saw in the historic grocery photo. The original infill at the second floor is unknown. The walls and windows at some point were replaced with concrete block and aluminum jalousie windows. I don't know when that happened. I assume sometime in the 60s, but it's clearly not original construction. It's concrete block, single wide. You can see the block from the inside. It's just painted. Nearly all of the original wood storefront located on the north and west is gone, removed, modified, or boarded up. The only remaining pieces are some of the transom windows that you see here. So our strategy for the rehabilitation of the exterior is pretty simple. Restore what we feel reasonably confident was there historically, with minor modifications to allow for contemporary use and functional needs. Here is a view of the proposed north elevation, the main facade facing Columbus. The intent is to restore the textured plaster finish. Some of the ornamental signage, detailing, and coping has broken off. We would like to reconstruct it, but maintain what really is kind of a rustic industrial quality of the original design. This is a view of the north elevation, but kind of cut through the balcony that's there along Columbus. Note the addition of 2 new doors on the second floor, there and there, which connect the balcony to the hotel rooms. We're fortunate to be able to understand on the first floor the location and size of the historic storefront openings. Here you can see how those openings likely looked back in 1910, and we would go back in those historic openings. As I mentioned before, the transoms are still intact and likely can be restored, some of them at least. We feel confident that the 3/1 window configuration is historically accurate based on the photos we've studied. You can see this photo we saw earlier pretty clearly shows that this was one big piece of glass. That's a column beyond there. So that's where you get the 3/1. This is the view of our proposed east facade facing the parking lot. Keep in mind that the first floor program from this blue line left will be back a house. In order to have a fully functioning kitchen and mechanical room, we need some of the more kind of unsightly building components for a modern building: exhaust fans, air intake louvers, egress doors, loading, etc. We intentionally located these functions to this corner of the building to be as discreet as possible. We're proposing the addition of 2 new exterior doors here and here to connect to the Cigar Lounge patio. The one on the right here would be a new opening, and then one on the left utilizes an existing window opening here. Also note that we're proposing the use of new exterior wall infill here with a stucco finish to replace that concrete block I mentioned earlier. Without knowing if the upstairs had brick, it could have, like the downstairs, but we don't know. So we felt like the best course of action was to really just actually kind of mirror the west side on the second floor because that's more intact. Here's a view of the south elevation, the back of the building. And note the unique transition from stucco on the left to brick on the right as you move, from one half of the building to the other. Don't know why this was the case. It's probably one of the just many idiosyncratic features of the original building. The west elevation, we would propose, it was something of a puzzle to kind of figure out in the same way some of the other ones were. The second floor windows are mostly gone, but the openings remain, and there are enough remnants of the trim, the sashes, and the frames to extrapolate their design, which is a 1/1 double hung window. So that would be on the second floor there. And then the only exterior door that remains is this beautiful artifact that we kind of found in the corner, which is a 2-panel, 4-light door that we would propose to use at all of the front of house door openings. And you saw that kind of as we walked around the building. The proportions changed depending on the size of the opening. The rest of the first floor windows, layout, and sizes are educated reconstructions of what was there historically, because as Ron mentioned, it's that infill construction with the wire lath is falling out. And on the west side, it's already out. At some point, they kind of boarded up and put some plaster on it, but we don't know what was there historically. We have those aerial photos, which are a little inconclusive, but this seemed like kind of the best educated guess as to what was there. And because the use is aligned with historic use, it kind of works well to kind of go back with that historic layout. This building section is cut east to west, kind of looking north, and it illustrates the function of the light well, which we're going to keep that open, and it draws in natural light to the middle of that second floor. It's a really unique building section. It's really striking when you're up there on the second floor. So a typical wall section highlights the primary features of the exterior facade. The original roofing material appears to have been a mopped-on tar product. We would propose a similar liquid-applied roofing membrane in order to ensure that the roof edge can remain free of any kind of metal coping. Also note that we intentionally are keeping any mechanical or any other equipment off the roof in order to maintain its aesthetic integrity. Next, the concrete eave, and there's sort of simple brackets that support it, will be repaired in kind. And the wood windows will be replaced, matching the existing profile and dimensions. And finally, the textured plaster will be restored when it's intact, and we're going to match it when it needs to get replaced. And here are the typical storefront openings and door elevations that you see on the north and west. And as I mentioned before, it's the 301 opening there on the right, and then the kind of the main door that goes up to the hotel is there in the middle. We can tell based off of the existing conditions that there was a transom there, and that the door height aligns with the adjacent storefront. So we feel really good about that. And then this door is on the second floor going out to the balcony. And again, you can tell based on the existing frame and trim that there was a transom, and we are assuming it was a kind of three-part and double doors down below. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Alex with Common Bond Design to talk a little bit about the interiors.
Alex Kalita, Common Bond Design, the interior designer. So since we're not going into too much depth on the interiors here, I wanted to focus on some of the fixtures and fittings, materials, and colors. As on the exterior, as John mentioned, we have black and white photos historically, but that doesn't give us a lot of information on color. But we can tell that there is a high contrast field and accent color. There was a darker accent color, most likely from what we can tell that's remaining. Hard to tell if it's original or was a subsequent intervention. It's sort of a dark brown color. And then our best guess is that the light, bright, high contrast field color was probably like a kind of off-white natural stucco color. So it's our intention to reapply those sort of accent and field areas as best as we can tell from the historic photos, and then looking at references of other stucco buildings in the area to fill in what we don't know. The door hardware, we're going to stick with unlacquered brass, which is what we did on the factory at El Reloj across the street to kind of emphasize that continuity and also keep it within the historic palette. I was reminding myself as I came into City Hall this morning that you guys have those great pulls, those diagonal pulls that we are hoping to bring back, both for period appropriateness, but also because on that corner, the building has a really unique corner entry on the corner of 16th and Columbus, and we want to emphasize that diagonality to the extent that that's a word. Because we're really trying to create this community between El Reloj, Cigar Workers Park, and at this intersection at 16th, Sanchez y Haya. Our signage is going to be very minimal. We don't want to put a big old sign on the front of the building because the stucco detailing already has lettering on it that says Sanchez y Haya Real Estate Company, and we plan to restore that. We want the building's history to speak for itself. Any additional signage that we included would either be in the form of, printed materials like a menu perhaps in the cafe that was visible through the window, or we found a really wonderful hand sign painter when we were restoring El Reloj, who could potentially do some hand lettering for us, either on the transoms or on the storefront glass windows themselves. Another idea we've explored is cafe curtains with embroidery, so that signage was on the cafe curtain as opposed to on the building. Mahogany doors, stained mahogany doors, similar to what we did across the street at El Reloj, working with Ron Vila. And in terms of the lighting, it's important for us, although there is not evidence of exterior lighting where those locations were, I think it's really important for us to make the area north of the highway as walkable as possible, the way that 7th Avenue is very walkable, and really engage the streetscape. And lighting is a big part of that at night. We want it to be safe, we want it to be well lit. And so we've borrowed some of the language since there was no lighting present when we took over the building. We have looked to other surrounding cigar factories and kind of mimicked that slightly industrial gooseneck, but where we've varied from the cigar factories is typically you'd have this very industrial, factory light shade on the end of the gooseneck. And while we did that at El Reloj, we feel it's really important to emphasize visually that Sanchez y Haya was never a cigar factory. It's not a cigar factory. It was an adjacent building that was meant to service the workers, to provide boarding, refreshment, a place to relax. And so we wanted to be a little more refined and elevated. So instead of that metal factory shade, we're expressing that gooseneck language, but then we're replacing the factory shade with an opal glass. Or something that looks like an opal glass but is safe for outdoor use, that kind of references the Ybor City 5 globe. And with that, I think I will hand it over to Drew.
Sure. Thank you, Alex. So just as Alex mentioned, we're very concerned about the walkability of our neighborhood and trying to make it safer for pedestrians, bicyclists. We even have scooters. People ride scooters up 7th Avenue, which is great. But I also want to highlight here, so you're aware, which you probably already are, there's a lot of other related projects happening. The city is bringing the green spine up 15th Street to Cascade Park, which is very exciting for us. Still need to get the Complete Streets project on Columbus continued from 14th to 21st, 22nd. FDOT is moving exit 1 of I-4 to 14th and 15th Streets, which we hope will improve the underpass, make it wider, make it more well lit, and improve the traffic flow there, and slow down 14th, 15th Streets underneath the interstate. There's too many accidents there. And then Brightline, very exciting. Everyone seems to talk about Brightline coming to Ybor City, somewhere around HCC. If that happens, we'll have high-speed rail with a few blocks away from El Reloj. And then there's a lot of good work that's happening with our neighbors. La Segunda is expanding. The Ybor Misfits Micro Sanctuary, the Chicken Rescue is our neighbor and our tenant. The new 11 Seas Bakery is exciting. Academy Prep is there. The Arturo Fuente Historic Factory is 2 blocks away. They're working on that project. And then we finally have another eatery, Renee's, great tacos. If you haven't tried it, please go there. And then Perfecto Garcia, the cigar factory to our north, is maybe 10 years into their 20-year restoration project, and they'll be finished at some point. So a lot of good stuff happening. We're very excited by what's happening north of Ybor, and just hope people, including the Barrio Latino Commission, don't forget about North Ybor City. And so last slide is just why we're doing this. These 2 photos, this is my great-grandfather, actually, I'll highlight him, right, with our company in 1905, and this is us today. But we're doing this because we love Tampa. We're proud of its history. We don't want to lose with all the great things happening in Tampa, we don't want Tampa to lose its historic cigar tradition. And the cigar industry is Tampa has supported the cigar industry since it came here in 1885, and it's a privilege for us to be ambassadors for Ybor City and the city of Tampa. And we're doing this for the long term. We're not flipping any of this. We expect to be in El Reloj for another 100 years, and I expect to be in Sanchez y Haya if all this goes forward for another at least 60 years of my life. So with that, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Avila, staff with Historic Preservation. With the staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines, we reviewed the plans that were presented to you this morning. We've been on site numerous times. Many of the preservation staff has been out there to provide guidance and just had that discussion. I think you see the passion that is coming forward with this project. It's really a true success story. When we first went out there and engaging with the building and the community and people trying to find a use for this site, and not including the historic building, demoing the building and then moving forward, that preservation is strong in this particular case. When you look at the Secretary of Interior standards, there's 10 bullet items that are the overall concept, and it talks about, preserving the historic building and its purpose. And a lot of times we go through an adaptive reuse. We don't get to go back to its original purpose. And this is spot on of what they're trying to do here, and that goes back to the ownership and their vision of what they're trying to do here. The sensitivity of the review of the materials that are on site, the archival information that was brought forward with the information of the photos that were generated back and forth through them and through us, and sharing the information was paramount to get to this point. Just to conclude, I have a couple of items I think that need a further discussion. One is the balustrade on the front, the railing. I don't know if that meets the 42 inches for code compliance for commercial property. If that dimension can be, displayed this morning. I'm just concerned that there might be an additional height to that, and if there is, maybe we can incorporate a railing, just a horizontal bar, and not bring that section up to lose the proportions that are there. The final stucco pattern we usually deal with on site. That's something that they'll work with their craftsmen, and then they usually put 3 or 4 different samples there, and then there's a dialogue back and forth. And then lastly, Drew talked about the engagement of the public spaces that are coming on board, and the interaction with the city and the project moving forward. I just wanted to share with you, I'm out there a lot, and when we're discussing, the cars are coming down Columbus Drive at a pretty rapid pace that was discussed earlier. Over time, when the asphalt has been laid, the curbing seems to be eliminated. Now with the fencing going here, that creates that barrier, that recovery zone, if a car comes over something, is a challenge there. So just to bring to your attention, if that curbing could be brought up to create that sense of place where the vehicles have their portion of the environment, and then the pedestrians on the sidewalk. But it's really low there, and I think that's for additional discussion, but you see it here. And if a car just veers a little bit, that safety concern could be a reality. So that concludes my portion. I'll be here to answer any questions as well.
Ron, quick
Yes.
question. The curbing that you just mentioned,
Yes.
would that be the responsibility of the owner as they move forward with redeveloping the parking lot, or is that a city?
I think there's additional vision that's going to happen over there through the city. I'm not in a lot of those meetings, but I hear some of the rumbling. I think it's a joint venture that they could bring up through this program here. I think that as trucks come into the project site, and any damage that is done to the sidewalks or public spaces, it falls on the owners to rehabilitate that. So I don't know if that's going to be damaged throughout, but I think that discussion needs to take place.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone here from the public wishing to comment? Seeing none. Let's start with some questions.
Thank you very much for what you've presented, and I love this building. Years ago, before you guys bought it, I took some clients through it, and it was truly amazing. We spent hours just looking at stuff. Cautioned that we were gonna get dumped on, but yeah, it is a beautiful building, so I'm very excited about this. I do have a couple things that if you talked about them, I totally missed the boat. I'll be honest about that. Roof material, I get that. But you said you were going to talk about keeping the mechanical off the roof. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
And if I heard that correctly, where are you putting it?
There's a mechanical yard we have set aside in the site plan. That would be number 7.
Oh.
Right there.
So the trash guy's got to walk past number 7 on his
Well,
rollout of
the dumpster would go pretty much right here and get
I'm
pushed
being
out.
sarcastic.
Yeah.
I know, I'm being sarcastic. Because I feel sorry for that poor employee. Okay, The other thing I had were balconies, canopies, and awnings. If you talked about awnings, I missed that boat totally.
No, we, at some point there was discussion about, yeah, we showed some right-of-way improvements on the west side here.
Right.
They're kind of conceptual in nature, and we'll kind of push that forward, but I know that that's not something we're talking about here today. There was some talk about putting an awning out here, and potentially one over the patio. It's still a work in progress. We're not prepared to talk about
Okay.
it today. So
Okay.
I did not speak to that.
And that's cool. I like your hardware, I like that. What else did I think those, one thing about we've got a notation here about the stairs. I don't recall there being stairs on the outside. Did I miss something?
No, there are no stairs on the outside. Well, I think maybe an older site plan you might have seen had stairs on the south side in the alley.
Okay.
But with the whole alley kind of vacation likely
Right.
not happening,
That
we
goes
rethought
away.
it. And there would be 2 stairs coming down from the second floor, the original stair here on the north side, and then an added egress stair on the south side, which will be internal to the building.
Okay, so both those sets of stairs are internal?
Correct.
Okay, then I'll cross that off, thank you. I think, you touched briefly on the color palette, indicating that in the past, the building appeared to be white, or a very much lighter color. Have you guys, are you looking to do the same? Again, if you presented it, I missed it.
No, it's okay.
Color
Yes.
scheme, here we go. Oh, okay. All right, I'm with you. Okay, I think those were all of my questions. He talked about the curbing. I think those were all of my questions. Thank you.
I just wanted a bit more detail on the mechanical units or some of the ventilation systems you're using. So with the, cigar lounge, the kitchen, possibly with the cafe, there's going to be a lot more additional ventilation requirements than there were when it was originally done, right?
Yes.
And so, and then generally with hotels stuff and stuff like that too, usually the easiest way to go is like some sort of package system. So usually, which means we're going to get a lot more. You usually have a lot of grills and louvers around the building and stuff for that type of thing. So it looks like you're trying to avoid that. I just wanted to kind of hear you talk about that.
No, it's a very important point.
Yeah.
We, on the factory side, there are some spaces, assembly spaces that require significant outside air to make up for all the smoke. So we're familiar with that. We're using the same mechanical engineer. There's going to be a maybe a frustratingly large amount of floor area dedicated to the mechanical room on the inside here on the first floor, as well as the actual kind of chiller or condenser on the outside here. For the hotel rooms itself, we're not going to have a kind of Hilton Garden Inn sort of PTAC unit where you have the grill on the outside. We will be bringing in fresh air from a combination of kind of louvers on this side here and louvers on the south side, in the wall, not on the roof.
In the wall, so how do you mean?
Well, here, let me go back and look at the elevation there. So this intake air is one example that's pulling in, and I can give you more detail. This was in concert with the mechanical engineer to kind of rough out about the approximate size of the louvers we'd need. And then on the south side, this air intake louver here.
Okay, I see.
So as opposed to doing something off the roof.
Okay, I see. All right, those are my big questions.
Thank you for a very wonderful presentation. The building is incredibly intriguing, and it's exciting to see it in such good hands and such a great team. A couple quick questions. I'm going to start with the site plan, if you could bring it back up. I notice you're fencing in the surface parking lot, but then I'm curious. It seems like there's 2 drawings. There's another drawing that shows a fence along the cigar outdoor area and some gates. Could you just clarify, are you trying to completely enclose the parking?
Yes, so the gate, it's a little tricky in that you have your right-of-way sidewalk right here, and then this is the area right below the balcony that is open to the sidewalk. On this side, it's pretty much flush, As you move to the west, it becomes like maybe like a 4-inch step. So the sort of secure perimeter will extend along Columbus, and then it kind of steps down right here and and then this would be unsecure, kind of open to the right of way, meeting up with the wall it would be a low wall consistent with what we're doing out here to set off the patio area. And then as you move along Columbus there'll be a pedestrian gate there for egress, moving along that kind of low brick wall with the metal fence above it. And then there will be cantilever gates at both entries. Those gates will be, there's some concern just about kind of, back up on that. We're going to work with city staff. But the idea is, which is how they operate both the park and the factory, is that security is there 24 hours. They come at 6 a.m., open it up, and then they come and manually close it and lock it at 9, 10 p.m. depending on their schedule. So, and then along the backside is where you have that 6-foot metal fence, which will come and connect to this corner of the building.
Okay, so the outdoor patio you're developing is enclosed and secured?
Correct.
Because another drawing showed a fence and gates along where the number 10 is, like the drop-off area, but there won't be a fence.
No, you'll have a low wall here just to separate, not for security, but just kind of spatially. But the secure fence, yes, will come right there and then die into the corner of the building right there.
And is there a gate that goes from the covered area into the parking lot as well,
There's a gate right here,
but not closer to the sidewalk?
and then there'll be a gate right here.
Okay, because the other drawing showed another one there.
Okay.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand the pedestrian experience. I can understand the need to, secure the surface parking lot, but at the same time, you want to create a welcoming environment.
Absolutely.
Secondly, just for clarification, is number 7 and 8, the mechanical and the garbage, is that covered?
No.
Okay, so the canopy that was referenced at the beginning is not, as you said, is.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So that's an
And so
exterior space.
This wall will be 6 foot plus, just to hide the mechanical unit as much as possible, but they're gonna need free air above it, so
Okay.
we're not covering it.
I don't think we've seen all the drawings you might want to see for that area, but it could probably be a comeback, yeah. Okay. Secondly, and this is pretty minor, but you mentioned scooters, I like to ride my bicycle in this part of Ybor City. I'm not sure if it's required by the city, but have you developed any areas for alternative means of transportation to be accommodated on this site?
I don't know that we've discussed that specifically, but we would definitely want to include, kind of bike racks. We haven't identified the best place
Okay.
for them, but it's
Especially
top
since
of
we're
mind
going to be
for us.
having hotel visitors, that
Absolutely,
might be nice.
absolutely.
And then I have one other question in terms of the terrific plans for, restoring the storefront and the amount of glass. But oftentimes we see on projects, newer projects, the film on the glass, or the ability to see through. The wonderful thing about these historic buildings in the past is you really could experience some of the interior life on the exterior, on the street. It becomes part of the streetscape. Could you speak to what's going to be required by the newer building codes, and what kind of visibility there's going to be, what kind of connection between the inside and the outside?
We haven't gotten to that level of specification on the glass, but I would agree with you that we would want the connection to be as direct as possible visually between the outside and the inside. No, I'm not sure if you're referring to kind of the low-E coating or.
Right.
Yeah, we'd wanted to avoid any kind of sort of color they tend to sort of give to the glass that's,
Yeah.
green or blue. We want it to be as clear as possible.
Okay. I had a question about the windows along the 16th Avenue side, if you could just put up that.
Yep.
I'm not sure if they were based on a historic pattern.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
okay. Because the proportions of the ground floor windows seem a little bit out of character. Are those openings and the dimensions based on what's there? I'm just referencing that in the past, they probably would have been not a double hung window. They would have been square and maybe just more a hopper window, really.
Yeah, it's a good question. And this is one area where we really kind of struggle to find the right solution. Between bays C and D, D and E and F, there's nothing there right now. So, and the photographs we had were inconclusive. So what we did is we looked at the other side of the building and used the proportions of these windows, and they are double hung, and brought them to the other side.
Okay.
And I think the trim is kind of optically kind of messing with the proportions, like they maybe look a little bit different, but the intent is to match the ones on the other side.
If you could flip back to the existing photographs, I thought I saw, oh, go back to the, no, actually,
There's some
I think
area
the other
here,
direction.
yeah. So these are the windows in question,
I see.
and it looks like they're a little higher, but we just don't know exactly
Yeah.
what the dimensions are.
Okay, it's just a
Yeah.
comment because that
Yeah.
kind of proportion looks a little suburban, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But if you have some historical
Yeah.
references you're working on, I guess there.
You know, just matching the other ones just seem like, you know, if they were high like that and the proportions weren't quite as kind of long and as you would expect, like up above, that might have been because they were displaying some stuff down below, not really sure. For programmatically, having kind of built-in banquet seating kind of worked with that, so we said, well, it seems like it kind of works both on the inside and it's got the reference on the outside, so let's roll with it.
Okay, thank you. Those are the only questions I had.
In looking at that picture, it just made me think in the skylight, open air area.
Yeah.
That only goes down through the second floor,
Correct.
correct? So it's there, it stops. How will that drain?
Well, that was one question I've been wondering for a while. So because you'd think it's a big bathtub and it would, you know, puddle up,
right.
but it doesn't. So as part of the work to kind of clear out the building, we had the contractor clear out the light well because you saw it was full of, you know, trash and plants and stuff.
Right.
And it does drain. Well, let me go to the plan. There is one drain that was all clogged up and hidden. And so on the second floor, it's in this corner. So for right about here to there's a pretty definite slope. Here, it's level. I don't know how it kind of makes its way, but that's a piece of the puzzle we're gonna have to figure out, if that's adequate, and then how to route the stormwater down in a way that's discreet and kind of satisfies code.
Well, this April you ought to know.
Yeah.
You'll see how it flows. Okay, thank you.
Wow, what an interesting building. There's so many different details going on, and I think you guys are doing a great job by trying to interpret what the history of the building is showing you and trying to restore what you can. But there seems like with the opposite windows on either side, there's just, you know, one side, the east side has eyebrows over the windows, but it doesn't look like they were on the west side. So I think you're taking your cues from the right place here, and I think it's a combination of a number of things to the historic photos really pull that together. I guess I kind of want to start with, let's go to the outdoor porch there and like the mechanical on that side. You can start with the elevation, I guess.
On which elevation?
East elevation. And I understand, and I'm also going to make a comment about the south elevation where you're putting that proposed air intake louver. I think it's very important that you work with the existing modules of the building. That intake vent that you've got up there, right there, probably should go somewhere else. I'm not sure where, and I know that's a difficult question to do, and see like the eyebrows on one side but no eyebrows on the other. So I think you're taking your cues right, but I think that needs to work off the modularity of the building, whether you work within that window bay to cut the intake louver there because it looks out of place and you're kind of doing a disservice to the building because everything else that you've done has been very set in the modules that we face. Now if we jump to the east elevation with the mechanical.
Sorry. There.
Yeah, see, like what you're doing, even like the mechanical louver there works off that same module, so that doesn't really bother me too much, and I think that's a better move. Respect the history of the building. What are these other? What's this small little intake over here by the side entry door? Yeah.
This one, it's required air intake, and this one, I agree. It's a little kind of patchwork, and we will definitely look at this again. The struggle is to kind of keep it high, high enough to, I think there are code requirements to get it off the ground. There wasn't a
Be
kind of a.
distance away from there and your exhaust fans.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So we can definitely look at that again, and I agree with the notion that as much as possible, they kind of should sort of blend and with the existing.
And if it
kind of-
doesn't work there, then you tie it into that corner up against that concrete beam and just try to minimize that
Right.
exposure as
Yeah.
much as possible. So I guess I'm kind of struggling with, okay, you've, to the right side of this elevation, you've got the outdoor area. It's gonna be a low fence, but we haven't seen what that fence is gonna be. Then you get into the mechanical area up to 6 foot, you're gonna block these windows, you're gonna have a lot of noise from all the mechanical equipment over there, which are gonna, bother your outdoor guests. Is there any way to get some additional screening there to cut down that noise? Because all your AC units are gonna be there, right? I'm sure you're gonna have large package units and,
Yeah, the 6 foot wall, I mean, there will be sound kind of pollution, if you will, from one to the other. We're cognizant of that. The 6 foot wall hopefully will take care of most of it. Beyond that, I think really the best thing we could do is just further separation. So maybe the solution is you don't have the cigar patio extend as far south as it does. Right now, we show it going there, but maybe you pull it up one bay just to create some separation. I don't know we want to go any higher than 6 foot. That just seems like that would be out of place, and we can't put a lid on it. So, we struggle with exactly where to put the mechanical units because, you're right, they're going to be loud. There's really no other place to put it on site here. And so it's going to be a design consideration we need to really look at closely. I agree with that.
and you have a lot of room there. I mean, you're using half the building for mechanical and trash and everything else. So you have some room. I'd like to see you kind of move that further away.
Yeah, yeah. We can
And
tighten
that
that
exhaust fan for the kitchen is gonna be right there. That's gotta be screened somehow because you're gonna be, it looks like it's mounted up pretty high. That's a large unit.
Yeah.
It probably sticks out the building on your south elevation 4 feet. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think we need to kind of get that obscured a little bit and screened.
Yeah,
So
I
you're not
mean-
gonna wanna see that walking in from your parking lot.
I know, and
I know
it's,
it's necessary.
it seemed like you gotta put it somewhere, and the kind of the trade-off of putting it on the roof versus putting it down here, even though, yes, even when you put your 6 foot wall for the mechanical yard, this will still be visible as you're walking in from the parking lot. I can look at pushing it over a little further to the corner, but that's where the egress stair comes down. So this was really as tight and as far away from there as I could put it. And at first we had it on the south side, but I was told by my mechanical engineer that you can't put it over the property line. It's gotta be over your property.
Yep. So it's a difficult thing. So where are we with that whole addition screening? Is that gonna come as a separate kind of submittal? Because you haven't really given us much detail on what
Yeah.
that's gonna look like.
We can definitely provide more detail and design on that. I'll kind of defer to Ron on the best vehicle for that, but we will definitely prepare to come back with elevations and details to show that more.
Okay, because you talked about covering that, and, I think that's a critical element.
Yeah.
That was,
Yep.
on that historic parcel, so, yeah. Okay, let's go to your wall section, I guess. Yeah, so on that one, it looks like on the other wall section that we showed, that's cut north-south, in your transom windows, it seems like there's a great amount of relief, meaning the transom window in the storefront that's going in there is kind of centered in the wall, it has depth. When I look at this wall section for the hotel room and the cafe, those windows are pushed all the way out, so it's flush with the exterior face of the building. Would it be more prudent for water protection and aesthetics for creating more, depth of the window to create more light? Is there a reason why you push it all the way front, or is it better to have it in the middle to create that light differentiate?
No, I get your point. I mean, you're pointing out that the frame and the sashes are closer to this surface, the exterior surface, than being kind of pushed back.
Correct.
And like in the background here, you can see in the light well at least that there's probably a good 2 inches where the frame starts back from the brick. I will commit to doing it the way that it is currently, whether it's the brick or the stucco offhand. I think that what I was reacting to here was that, let me pull up you have the stucco and then you have the brick. And there's two different conditions. So this image here is the window frame is closer to the exterior surface of the stucco versus the brick where it is set back as a masonry opening. So at the brick, we would go back and match whatever that plane is for the existing, and at the stucco, we would do the same.
Okay, and this kind of goes back to my comment, that every condition is different almost.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
how you treat that. I just want to make sure that that was a conscious design decision to locate that at the front and match the historic
Yeah,
property. Okay, I'm good with that. Are those windows operable,
yeah.
even in the hotel rooms?
Oh, you proposed?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they're gonna be operable. I need to talk about that with the owner and mechanical engineer, but, I think that, I believe code only allows like 4 inches for it to be actually open.
Right.
And I know that my mechanical engineer would, advise against it, but, that's a decision that needs to get made.
Okay. Let's see. So, when we're looking through the section that goes north-south, actually, we can work off of this one right here. So your porch on the left-hand side of this drawing, in that angled opening, what's the treatments underneath that balcony or that porch or the underside of that roof deck, both for the side entry door, the angled door, and on the underside of the porch? Is that all exposed concrete? So you're just gonna paint that, or is that gonna get stuccoed, or are you gonna do like a wood, you know?
It's just gonna be
slab?
the exposed concrete painted. That's what it is now.
Okay, even on the low one, the angled door too?
Yeah, you're talking about just on the underside right here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, and what are you proposing to do with, what about the roof edge treatment where that just overhangs a little
Yeah.
bit? Is that just exposed concrete, or is that?
Yes, it is. So it's about 6 inches of that exposed concrete edge, and these are the little brackets that we're gonna repair. We're gonna keep it as it is, and that's why we selected the liquid applied, so that we didn't have to put any kind of trim or metal coping on it.
Are those like corbels?
Yeah, yeah, kind of. Like, it's pretty rustic, but yeah, you can
It
call
just
them
works
that.
off of that column,
Yeah.
the concrete columns,
Yeah.
I guess, okay, all right. And Ron had mentioned the handrail at the front porch. What's your height out there right now?
That's a good question, and to be honest, I hadn't considered that. I would say just standing up there, it likely will need to come up a few inches, and we can work with Ron to get that detail right. But that's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, I just think, you know, for code, you need
Absolutely.
that 42.
It's
maybe
not
46, but
dramatically low, but it likely is not 42 inches.
hotel, residential. It's residential, so you might be able to go 36 up there. But
I think
I'd say
42.
whatever material is, match everything else that you're doing with the aluminum, make it like kind of disappear. And you could also set that back a little bit
Yeah.
and set that so it's not on that front face.
That's what I'm wondering, is you attach it to the backside of the.
Backside and
of
have an
the-
angle in to keep people away would
Yeah.
probably be an acceptable solution. Like, basically, we don't want to see very much up there.
Yes.
And I think the nature of what you're working in is you're respecting the historic nature of the building, preserving everything that you can.
We'd want to minimize it.
Preservation is key in this project. There are certain elements that are gonna be new. Have you kind of figured out what that balance is, or is it straight preservation? So any existing elements that you can't repair, you're gonna reconstruct in the similar configuration that they were, or are you gonna use new elements in certain places?
Fortunately with this project, it will be mostly reconstruction and recreation of what we feel was there. The new elements on the exterior of the building will be the light fixtures that Alex referenced before, which we're gonna, I think likely on this elevation, we will have a few of those attached to the building. But it's always a delicate balance between, I think, acknowledging when you don't know what was there, and that acknowledging that it's new, and wanting it to be compatible and complementary, but recognizing that it's a new element. So it's just striking that balance. But other than like the light fixtures and unfortunately kind of the mechanical louvers, I can't think of one kind of new building component that would be on the outside of the building. we'll have, these, pretty utilitarian doors that will be hidden.
And that setback, those two bays at the bottom are both setback, or just one bay is setback?
When you say setback, what do you mean?
Like, inside in the building, or is that the other corner? The southeast corner is kind of,
Well, so the southeast corner, no, this corner
Southwest
is flush. It always has been. The southeast corner is currently open now. We plan to enclose it. If you look at some of those historic aerials, you can see that back corner there that's open. It was infilled at one point, not sure if it was original or not. So because we're gonna have loading off the parking lot and not off of, we wanna keep it off of 16th, I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull up the plan here. Yeah, you can
even
see.
the aerials there.
Yeah, these aerials, you can see part of it's infilled, which is not reflective of what it is now. So not sure kind of what it was originally or when, if modifications were made, when.
But that second bay looks open.
Yeah, the second bay
Yeah.
is open there. But we didn't want loading off of 16th here, just because of we wanted to get out of the right of way as much as possible. So that's why we have loading on this corner. And so to kind of programmatically help with the back of house, we plan to enclose this.
Okay. Okay. I don't have, anyone else have questions?
There you go.
Okay. So we've talked about a number of things. We've had some questions for you. You have a few minutes to summarize. Any comments that you want to make or rebut any of our questions, or we can go ahead and close the public hearing after that.
I would say I appreciate the consideration, good questions. I think for the lack of detail, what I'm hearing is that, the city would like to see more detail specifically on the exterior kind of walls and how we're treating the patio. Happy to provide that. We will work on the handrail detail on the elevations. I think just being sensitive about the location of the louvers, absolutely, and making sure that they kind of align as much as possible with the existing kind of geometry of the building. So that's all good feedback, and we will work to incorporate that moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We can have discussion on the projects amongst ourselves. Mr. Zlotz, are you ready?
Oh, I think the project is to be applauded, and I almost feel it's ready for a final, actually, with just a list of conditions that they can consult with staff.
I'd agree that I think the team has done their due diligence and done great research on the historic nature of the building, and trying to match that as close as possible. No, generally, everything's great. I would agree. I was saving for the louvers and asking about all that questions, so we can try to align it with the bays. I understand why the intake on the south side is where it is, because you want it up high, you need it above the room and in the ceilings and that type of stuff, but that's gonna be a difficult one to place, so I'd agree with that. But if we can find a better place to kind of place it, that would be ideal, obviously. But other than that, everything else is looking together, coming great, and I agree they can probably work with staff for some of the conditions that we would want to present to them.
I agree with what my fellow commissioners have shared. I think it's good. They've done a lot of work in investigating, going back in time, looking at that kind of stuff, and trying to make it as accurate to history as they can.
Yeah. I think the ownership group and the design team should be commended for their effort here. I think they all have a track record here of doing what we expect and see here. So I have faith in their efforts here. I think they're taking the right approach to restoring the historic nature of the building. A few little tweaks here and there. I am a little concerned about the outdoor seating area and the screening. I think there's a couple different things that you could do there to kind of make that screened. Whether it might be a higher wall there that has partial visibility through there that kind of visually separate that out. I'm not sure if that's a separate submittal that'll come back to the board, or we'll work with staff, but I think there's this project I think is going to take a lot of staff time for coordination in the field. They've already been out there quite a bit, and I think they're all looking forward to the partnership of working together to get this building on its way. But yeah, I'm good with their approach and their details of what they've shown, and just continue to work with staff on those few details.
Yeah. I'd just like to say I appreciate the concerns about the placement of the vents and the exhaust fans and those kind of things, but keep in mind too that given this historically, It's an industrial neighborhood. You know, these are factories, buildings that, you know, had certain kinds of functions. So we tend to fetishize and maybe make restored buildings a little bit too precious. But that said, I'm sure they'll come up with a solution that satisfies everything.
Okay. Do we have two different certificate of appropriateness? Because it's both the building restoration and the site improvements? Or can we combine them into one? All together? Yeah. All right, and so in terms of conditions that I have them to work with staff, I have the railing on the upper floor to match the window depths as existing for each of the various conditions. To work with staff on the mechanical and trash wall screening. Let's see what else. Louver and grill placement. Let's see.
Stucco patterns.
The final stucco pattern details, and then I can't even read my own handwriting. And then what were the patio details? You wanted to kind of work on depth of that, or
We just haven't seen what that is. I mean, they're
the
talking about.
hardscaping of it and all that.
Yeah,
kind of stuff,
and the fencing
materials.
and the roof covering, if they're gonna do lean-to, we haven't
Yeah.
talked about anything on that.
And if you could include this, I know it always, awnings and signage, exterior signage always
Yeah.
goes back to staff for approval. But also, we've seen, currently there's no metal canopy proposed, but if there is, it
Yeah,
would need to
yeah,
come back.
yeah. So the awning, or is that?
Well, they
Well-
talked about signage, though.
Yeah,
Well, the hand letter, the hand painting and stuff like that, but they
Right.
decided to add any.
well, awnings would be like fabric awnings along the side.
Oh, you're talking about that
whereas
versus the metal canopy,
metal
okay.
They
Yeah,
haven't,
yeah.
they haven't, I asked about that, they
Yeah,
haven't
canopy.
got that far.
All right. So then with that, for certificate of appropriateness, we can move to a final approval with conditions. So move to grant certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented as public hearing in BLC 24-40 for the property located at 1601 East Columbus Drive. In more detail, 1607 East Columbus Drive, 2614 North 17th Street, 2616 North 17th Street, 2618 North 17th Street. With the following conditions: that the applicant work with staff to finalize the upper railing details to match the window depths as existing in each of the individual condition. Work with staff to finalize the mechanical and trash wall or screening on the exterior of the building. To finalize louver and grill placements around the building. The final patio details, let's see, the final stucco patterns, and the awning and exterior signage, and if a metal canopy gets added. Because based on the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with Ybor city design guidelines of the city of Tampa for the following reasons: that it meets the Secretary of Interior, meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, and it meets the, let's see, Ybor City Design Guidelines for exterior rehabilitation for retaining the original features of the facade, and then and for maintaining original facade materials as well.
God, do we need a lunch break after that?
Yeah, I know, right?
Second,
Okay, there's been a number of conditions placed on this application, dealing with the railings and the windows and whatnot, and we're extensively working with staff. Does the applicant acknowledge that these conditions are acceptable?
We do, thank you.
And just one quick question for Ron. The exterior porch and roof and lean-to shading device, is that something mostly going to be handled by staff? And if the staff warrants that it demands additional review by the board, it'll come back to us?
That's exactly how to move forward. We'll review it with direction from that we received today, and in working with their team prior to get a project that is compatible. We understand that if we're uncomfortable with that at any time, you'll see it again.
Okay, very good. All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
congratulations.
Lovely project. All right, we have some, we need a motion to bring in staff approvals and exhibits filed during the testimony today.
I make a motion to accept, let me get my glasses on so I know what I'm doing. I make a motion to receive and file the submitted documents and exhibits from today's hearing.
Second.
All in favor of said motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion Motion carries. Seeing no business before us, we are adjourned until next month. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.